Welcome to Break the Rules with Dr. Lauren Lax, a podcast dedicated to quieting the noise in the health, food, and fitness world. Dr. Lauren is a leading nutritionist, therapist, and functional medicine practitioner on a mission to help others thrive in their own lives, mind, body, and soul. And now, your host, Dr. Lauren Lax.
Well, hello. Welcome to another edition of the Break the Rules podcast, where we talk about quieting the noise in the health, food, and fitness world. And today, super stoked to be bringing you an episode about how our outside world can affect our inside world. A lot of times on the show, we're talking about the inside affecting the outside, but it actually can be a two-way street. I have Amanda Gates in the house, who is a professionally trained interior designer, advanced Feng Shui practitioner, podcaster, author, and award-winning blogger. She actually almost went to medical school as well until life took her on a different path, which she'll explain to us today. But today we're just going to have a really good conversation about how feeling disorganized or cluttered in our external life can affect our internal well-being too. Amanda, I'm just really super pumped to dive into this episode. I haven't had an episode like this, and thanks so much for coming on. And if you could just give us a little bit of background about who you are and what got you doing the work you're doing in the world.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So I was pre-med, and I was just saying at the top of the show before we came on that I'm probably the only advanced Feng Shui practitioner who has a degree in biology with a minor in microbiology. I was accepted to med school down in LA, and I was actually on my way, and we were soon to be married. We weren't quite married. He and I had purchased a home in California, and we had completely gutted it, taken it back to the studs. We were stoked about it because it was like the worst house, but in the best neighborhood. It was like the neighborhood that everybody wanted to be in. And I was experiencing a lot of weird health issues. I had suddenly gotten a fever blister on my lip, which I had never had before. I was having a lot of breathing issues. And I kept having this respiratory thing where I was breaking down. And I later learned that this was called a panic attack. And I was just having all these very strange experiences. And, I'm early 20s, and I'm thinking, okay, if I just make the house prettier and put up more chandeliers, it'll all go away. And so I went down to the bookstore, and I'm looking at all these decorating books, and I was like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do here. Like, I don't know which one to pick. And it was very kismet. This woman walked over to me and she said, darling, you don't need those books. You need that book. And she pointed to this ominous F word that I had no idea how to pronounce. And she spun around and walked away. And the rest is history. I mean, I cracked the book, and it was talking about the importance of the front door and how all energy enters in through the front door, this concept of chi. And all of the issues that I was having was all based on my front door, which seemed crazy to me. But my mouth, I had a fever blister, and my panic attacks were all associated with the front door. And at the time, ours was boarded up because our house was being remodeled, and it had been boarded up for 8 months. And when I started, here I am, a scientist, because I'm going to med school. I started backtracking, and I was like, oh my God, we boarded this up 8 months ago. So I started looking at when I got the fever blister, when I started having the respiratory issues, when I started getting this thing called a panic attack. It was literally all because of the front door. And so as soon as I had the handyman rip off all the stuff on the front door and we were able to open it up, everything went away and never returned again.
Amazing. Well, when you first were starting to tell me that story before we recorded, I was like, was it mold? Was there something in the house? But that's so crazy that it was just like, it's a matter of how energy, I guess, in the house. Explain to us a little bit about why that would be the case.
Yeah. So the front door is one of the most important things in a home. It's considered the mouth of chi, the mouth of the home. So I always tell people, because, when they're new to Feng Shui, they raise an eyebrow at me and they're like, really? The front door, huh? Well, think about, if you've got somebody who gets injured and they get their mouth wired shut, what happens to them? They get emaciated. They can't eat properly. They can't get the proper nutrition that they would normally be able to if they were able to eat like they normally would. So if you've got a front door that doesn't properly function, if the door is on really squeaky hinges or a stick stuck not working properly, if you don't use it, most people use the back door, the side door, the garage door, you're literally affecting the mouth of, the home is a direct reflection of our bodies. It's called the mystical body. So if your mouth is hindered in some way, the energy in your entire home is going to be hindered in a big way, and it's going to dramatically show up in your energy system. And everybody's a little bit more different. We all have our differences in chi because we have our own personal chi. This is what acupuncturists work on. But it doesn't matter how dense your chi is, it will eventually affect you. Some people it will affect quicker than others, but at some point, if you're not using your front door or if something is wrong with it, it's going to show up in your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of hearing your story as well brought to mind a client of mine recently. We were working on her sleep habits, and she had been home, obviously within quarantine and everything, just more than usual. And was finding that she was staying up until, say, like 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning and then going to sleep, just like randomly on social media or I don't know doing what. But as the more we talked and processed like the whys behind it, because she's really wanting to get into a schedule, I asked her, like, instead of focusing on that thing, just like going to bed earlier, what is the habit keeping you from going to bed earlier? Like, or what is like really bugging you? And she said, you know what? My house is just a mess. It's super cluttered in my room, and I just feel like it's my house. And so we're talking about sleep at all. We're just talking about her space and her environment. And so we kind of settled on the fact that, okay, this week, start like decluttering one room. But before we knew it, the whole home was decluttered, and she's back to like sleeping on a schedule that she wants to be on. What for her in that situation, like, is that something you've ever seen before in your practice? And talk a little bit about just the energy of the home in general.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people will associate Feng Shui with clutter and vice versa. And to me, that it absolutely is going to affect you. That would definitely be a side effect, what she's experiencing. But I also consider that very surface Feng Shui. Because it can go a lot deeper. And it's fantastic that you picked up on, okay, what's the bigger picture here? Let's take a step back and what's the bigger picture as to why you have supposed insomnia? So like I said a few minutes ago, our spaces are a direct reflection of us. So typically what will happen is when things are upside down in our lives, things are falling apart, AKA we're going through a crazy ass pandemic that we've never experienced. When we experience dramatic change, some people don't adapt as well as others to that. And so there's this crazy cycle where when energy starts to stagnate, clutter starts to accumulate. But as clutter starts to accumulate, energy starts to stagnate. So it's like this weird paradigm where it can get out of control very, very quickly. And so what happens is when you have a lot of clutter or a lot of debris in your house, it's postponed energy. And so what happens is it becomes what we call very yin. It's very soft, quiet, slow energy. And so it's a direct reflection of energy, and you are going to be dramatically affected by that. So she was experiencing that slow, stagnant, soft energy, postponed energy, and not really wanting to be active and getting in the routine of a schedule because that energy was dramatically affecting her. And then as soon as she undid that postponed energy and started cleaning things up, things started moving again because the energy was starting to get balanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where energy goes, energy flows. Talk to us. You started talking about like the front door and what that represented of our house. Can you kind of just like walk us through a home and really like in an ideal world, what each represents and what kind of like balance we'd want to find in those spaces?
Yeah. So I always recommend, if you're new to Feng Shui, I have a proprietary system that I always tell people to start with, and it's called the top 5 disruptors. So the top 5 disruptors are the top 5 things that you want to look for to really start getting the energy right in your home. The first one is the front door. It's the key one. And so if anybody is listening today and you've got a lot of postponed energy around your house and you have zero motivation, you're exhausted and fatigued, and you're like, oh my God, Amanda, 5 things? I can't possibly start with the front door. It's the easiest thing you can do. Make sure that it's operational and it's working well. Make sure it's cleaned up. Get rid of all the cobwebs. Make sure that it's not sticking. If it is, hire a handyman to shave it down. Get it operational so that it's functioning. And make it a point to open it at least once a week just to get that energy flowing. It doesn't have to be for a long time. You can just open it up for a minute and then close the door. Number 2, pay attention to your bathrooms. Bathrooms are a huge suck on energy, because if you think about where the water goes, where does it go? It goes down. Well, so does your chi. So the average bathroom has 5 drains in it. So if it's got 5 drains in it, that could be a real pull on your energy system. And if you combine that with a lot of clutter and toiletries and it's not cleaned, a lot, again, we're dealing with a lot more yin energy, and we're dealing with things that are going to stagnate in that area of your life, depending on where it falls. So I always tell people, if you're brand new to Feng Shui, you don't necessarily have to pay attention to where it's located, but at least get it cleaned up. Make sure all the drains are working. Make sure that the toilets aren't clogged. Make sure that the tub isn't clogged. And if you can, shut the door. Some people can't do that because they have pets, but if you can, do that. It just slows everything down so that you don't have all that chi going down the drain. Number 3, you want to pay attention to the shape of your home. The shape of your home is really important because ideally we would like it to be a square or a rectangle, because that it just allows chi to flow properly. If you have a home that has an unusual shape to it, it just means that chi can't flow in a normal way. And so pay attention, take a look at your house. Is it an L shape? Is it a U shape? I've seen some crazy ass designs that architects come up with. And it's like, I saw one the other day, it just went on for days and days and days and days. And it had like all these arms and wings. And I was like, oh my God, like this is intense. And so one of the first things that I ask the person is, do you have a lack of focus? Do you feel like you're like kind of spinning your wheels and going nowhere? And he goes, oh my God, ever since we moved into this house. And I'm like, yeah, it's the shape. It's crazy. So again, direct reflection. And then, paying attention to wall corners. Obviously, every house has wall corners. It's not that big of a deal, but you do want to pay attention to wall corners that are coming at you. Like if you're sitting in an office and you've got we call it a knife edge. It's a wall corner. If it's coming at you, it can cause you to be fidgety. It can cause mood swings, insomnia. It can lead to clients or customers behaving badly. And if you have one coming at you in your bed, you're going to experience mood swings, insomnia. I just put this up on my YouTube channel. One of my clients was kind enough to let me do a floor plan reading live and to film it on Zoom. And I put it up on my YouTube channel, and she had a knife edge coming at her bed. And I said, do you have a hard time sleeping? Do you have any leg issues? And she goes, oh my God, ever since we've moved into this house, I've had restless leg syndrome and I've had insomnia. And so I moved to the other bedroom. And she said, and ever since I've done that, I have no longer experienced any insomnia and my legs don't hurt. It's just as simple as moving. And then lastly, number 5 is what we call command position. Your bed, your desk, and your stove. Ideally, you want to be able to see the door. This goes back to evolution. As doctors, many people are trained on fight or flight. If you fire up your adrenals, your parasympathetic nervous system is going to be on high alert. And so when you're sleeping at night, this goes back to our evolution, that we want our back to the cave so that the tiger or lion that comes in doesn't attack us. And so when we're sleeping, when we're sitting at our desk, because our work is, how we fulfill a lot of the things in our life because of monetary means. And then also when we're cooking, because if you are in fight or flight and you're fired up, you don't want that energy being driven into your food. So it's ideal to position yourself to where you can see the door. And if that's impossible, to place mirrors or a mirror up so that you can always see the door, and it relaxes your energy system. So those are the 5 things that I always recommend. And again, if you are listening to this today and you hear this and you're overwhelmed, you're like, oh my God, I can't possibly. The front door is by far the most important. And I have YouTube videos on the front door. I've done an entire podcast on just the front door to help people understand what it is and why it matters, and how to get going in the right direction on your front door so that you can start experiencing the shift in chi.
Very, very cool. Well, I would love to know some of also the health connections that you have found, or if there's any themes with some of these, being shut off, in the bathroom compared to the kitchen or the front door, etc. Or is it just kind of imbalance can occur throughout the home if these areas are not addressed?
Well, those are the top 5 that I always recommend to get people started in the idea of energy. Because if you're absolutely new to Feng Shui, and I'm telling you that it's a direct reflection on your life, and what's going on in your home is going on in your life, a lot of people will raise an eyebrow and say, not really sure about that. And what I see people do a lot is things aren't going right in their world. And so they seek external things. They hire a coach, they start eating right, maybe they buy a bunch of self-help books, but nobody ever considers their home as a possible solution. And the thing is that's the first place you should be looking, because where do you spend the most time? Aside from work, most people, and right now, a lot of people are spending a lot more time at home. So the shape of your home is going to dramatically affect your energy system. How you're using your front door is going to affect it. Your bathroom is going to affect it. If you're working from home and you're sitting up against a wall, you're probably going to experience blocks in your career, possibly some anxiety. So you have to pay attention to how you're feeling. And so what's really fun about this is to experiment with it. And that's kind of the challenge that I did when I did the podcast show on the front door. I was like, okay, for all you skeptics out there, let's just have a little experiment. I want you to do, I think I did 5 tips or something on the front door. I want you to do these things. And oh my God, we were flooded with emails on the various things that people experienced. And I had a girlfriend up in Virginia. I flew up to see her last year. And she wanted me to help her with her Feng Shui. And I noticed that she doesn't use her front door a lot. She does use it, but not a lot, but it was sticking really, really bad. And so I told her, I said, you really need to get a handyman out here to get this, fixed and shaved down. And she said, well, really? I mean, that's probably gonna be like $200. Is it really worth it? Well, get this. She goes ahead and she does it because she believes in energy. And that week, her husband had a conference in Vegas and he won $50,000.
Oh my gosh.
I think it was worth it.
That's amazing. Some good energy out there.
Yeah. So I think it's a great way to experiment and, just to kind of take a step back and go, what if? Mm-hmm. What if this energy stuff really is affecting me? And what if, I do what this crazy girl's telling me to do, that, these weird things in my house are really affecting me, and you experience a shift. Almost everybody does. And so it really empowers you because you're thinking, wow, I've been seeking all these external things to get my life right. And literally all I had to do is these couple of things in my home, and you start to experience it. And then I always say you touch the magic, which makes it so fun because you're like, oh my God, what can I do next?
Yeah, it's just like a snowball effect, it sounds like. Well, talk to us about some just the practical entry steps into putting a toe in the water. I mean, is it a matter of even just rearranging your furniture, like you mentioned, mirrors, etc.?
I don't really practice the belief that furniture, other than command position and being able to see the door, to me, again, that's kind of surfacey Feng Shui. I very rarely do anything as far as the furniture goes or placement. Obviously, if you place a couch in the middle of the room and you can't get into which I had that experience where this woman literally put a sofa in the walkway into the room and you had to climb up over the sofa. Obviously, we need to move the sofa in a situation like that. But for the most part, your furniture doesn't have anything to do with how the energy is flowing in your space. It's more about the details within your home and how you're utilizing your home and how you feel. So I always tell people, write down some of the things that you're experiencing. Oftentimes what happens is our bodies are very adaptable. And when one thing starts to fail, some other part of our body steps in and says, don't worry, I got this, like team players here. But we get very accustomed to things not feeling right or things not going right. Or, I have a lot of women that experience infertility. I have a lot of women who experience, weight gain and they can't get rid of the weight and they get so used to it. They fight it, but they get so used to it that I guess it's just what it is. And they never really think, I wonder if it has something to do with energy. And a lot of times when you start shifting things around in your home energetically, that's when the weight starts to drop off. That's when you suddenly get pregnant and things start to shift. So I always encourage people to write down the things that you're experiencing right now in your life that aren't working. What is it that you are really not? And now is a great time to do that because we're all home and we're starting to see the woes of our ways and we're being forced to slow down. And it's like, maybe I don't need to work 65 hours a week. Maybe I could work a little bit less and maybe I don't need to have all these things. So it's a really great time of reflection. So write down the things that, have been going on in your life. Maybe it's health issues, infertility, career issues, the things that you haven't been real happy with, and then start experimenting with those top 5 disruptors and take notes. Because a lot of times when you're dealing with energy, it's quite subtle. The shifts are quite small and they can seem so insignificant that you miss them. But it's like, a stone in a pond where it ripples out and that one little tiny shift over time accumulates into something massive. So I think that the biggest fault of our ways is that, we do get subtle things like this in our lives and we don't pay attention to it because we're too busy. We got too much going on. And so I think that starting with those top 5 will help you see that magic does exist and that energy, our systems are very tuned into our environments and our environments dramatically affect our health and how we feel. So if you have a woman that comes to you and says, good Lord, I'm getting old and as soon as I hit 40, I can't lose weight. Well, one, that's a self-limiting belief. They've probably picked that up somewhere. And so they're manifesting that, but also what's going on in their house. Have they been utilizing their front door? How does their closet look? I find that a lot of women that have a lot of weight issues, their closets are packed to the gills. You can't even get like one shirt, and hang it up. So I actually wrote this great article a couple of years ago called, Is Your Closet Making You Fat? And, it was polarizing for a lot of people and I did that on purpose. I wanted to get their attention because just like you did with your own patient, it's not about the clothes. It's about the consumerism of buying more, thinking that thing's going to make you happy. But why are you sad and why are you buying it in the first place? Because ultimately half the stuff in there still has tags on it and you're not wearing it. So there's a bigger issue there. So a lot of times when I have women that have weight issues, I will have them clear out their closets, get rid of the 80-20 rule where they wear 20% of it, get rid of the 80% that you're not using or wearing or whatever the reason is that you're hanging on to it, and get rid of that energy because it's postponed energy and it's associated with how you feel, how you look, and I think that a lot of women tend to buy clothing because they're trying to feel good or maybe hide the weight. But if you release that energy and show the universe that you're ready, able, and willing to open yourself up to bigger things, it's like magic. The weight starts to drop off. So it's little subtle shifts like that and journal about it, write these things down because as things start to shift and change, you'll be like, oh my God. So And most people don't realize it. I had my accountant, she doesn't believe in Feng Shui at all. You know, she's very black and white. She's an accountant, obviously. And I did her Feng Shui for her a year ago. And I said, what are your top 3 goals? And she said, you know, I'd really love to buy a house someday. And I'd really love to be in a relationship. Those are really my 2 top goals. And I said, okay. So we worked on the Feng Shui, and about 6 months later, she bought her first new home. And so she was like, oh, that's not the Feng Shui. Okay. Well, I was like, well, at least we got one, because she didn't get the other. Well, I saw her the other day. Things have slowed down because of the pandemic. And she said, well, I didn't want to tell you, but actually, right after you did the Feng Shui, I met someone and we just got engaged.
Wow.
Like, how can you not tell me these things?
That's amazing.
But she got her top 2 goals, and it was just and I think that because her thinking is so black and white, we didn't move furniture. We didn't do anything physical. We did everything on an energetic level. And she's still not certain about that. She can't fathom this idea that because we moved and shifted energy, and this concept of, wow, the 2 things I really wanted, and we moved some energy around, and I got the 2 things that I wanted, and she's still having a hard time wrapping her brain around it. Yeah. But that to me is the magic of energy and energy medicine and what it can do for you.
Right. And really just how much our environment, again, can influence how we feel.
Yes. Yes. And feeling better, you know, knowing that it is the solution. I guarantee you, if you're having a chronic issue, whether it's diabetes, infertility, heart issues, digestive issues, whatever it is, I guarantee you there's something that is showing up in your floor plan that, you know, obviously combined with a healthcare practitioner, I always recommend that, but I guarantee you there's something showing up in your floor plan that is indicating that chronic issue. And when you work on the energy and work with a practitioner, that ailment will go away.
Well, Amanda, where can people find out more about you? Because I know you do floor readings. Is that right?
Yeah, floor plan readings. And my business is 100% virtual, so I do it from all over the world. The best place is just to go to gatesinteriordesign.com. I've got my services listed there. My signature one is called Feng Shui, because most people want to know it now. They don't want to wait. And then, you know, if you're curious about it and you're not really sure what this shui stuff is all about, I always recommend checking out my podcast, which is Home Energy Design. I do a bunch of tutorials on there and educational stuff just to teach people more about Feng Shui. And then I also have a YouTube channel, which is Amanda Gates Feng Shui, where I just do really quick tutorials, like 3 to 5 minute videos that are easy and quick so that you can implement something small today to shift the energy in some place in your life.
Amazing. I'll definitely be putting the links in show notes. And thanks again for coming on and just helping us break some rules in the health, food, and fitness world by looking to the outside today, not so much always the inside.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on today.